All right, hopefully a short draftphysics.com video presentation regarding Reddit posts and engaging in a debate regarding the sensibility of the energy theorem of conventional physics, that is the kinetic energy theorem, that declares that it takes 25 times the fuel to go something, to make something go 5 times as fast, that there's this quadratic increase in energy with size. So small things going fast can have the same momentum as a large thing going slow, but they will have different amounts of energy by this squared velocity theory. And the fact is, it doesn't work. It doesn't survive conservation laws. And there are experiments demonstrating its fallacy because it just shows it doesn't happen anywhere. So there is a mythbuster video where they actually do crush cars into each other, and they actually do crush clay. There's no evidence of the quadratic increase in the work done on the clay or on the cars. So they crashed two same identical cars, one at 50 miles an hour, one at 100 miles an hour, and the outcome is 2 to 1, not 2 to 4. So the car going 100 miles an hour should crush 4 times as much as the car going 50 miles an hour. And it doesn't. It only crushes twice as much, indicating momentum is the controlling factor, and all you have is momentum. So it's a pretty glaring example. Yeah, it could be done better. We could have 10 miles an hour and 20 miles an hour and 30 miles an hour, but we don't. But we do have this example, and it's pretty solid evidence. So there's people sticking nails in floral foam, and they drop things on to soda crackers and pretend to do experiments that are supposed to be demonstrating this. Now, the whole point of a Joule tank was to measure energy by converting it all into heat. But unfortunately, science doesn't do any Joule tank experiments. So none of this has been tested in any other way. I'm asking for links to experiments superior to the Mythbuster video, okay, where the cars are crushed and the clay is compressed, and show me a better video than that, something more credible as a description of the reality. So that's the challenge, and so far there hasn't been anyone meeting that challenge with anything credible, as credible. All right, so the car crushing one was dramatic. It shows no sign of 4x. It wasn't 3 times the crushing. It wasn't even 2.5 times the crushing. No indication. So way short of the required 4x the crushing. So then when they did the clay experiment, they start with a hunk of clay that was 3 inches. At one velocity, the clay was crushed to 1.5. It just happened to be half. So no matter how you measure it, it's still 1.5. It's half of the distance. And then with the velocity twice the velocity, it was almost perfectly half of that, 1.5. So it was, the real number was 7.777. I think the real original number was 0.53 or whatever. But it came out pretty much perfect. So again, no sign of what was required if the kinetic energy is real. It's a requirement that this experiment come out with 3.75, not 0.75. So it's just dramatic evidence again. No sign, like I said, not a little bit more, not even close, nowhere off even, being almost perfectly consistent with momentum deciding what energy is transferred. Now they say, okay, in their theory, just mentioning it as a fact, that when something crashes into a surface and it elastically bounces off that surface, that it puts twice the energy into the other surface. Well, they also did that experiment where they crushed 2 cars into each other. And obviously one car doesn't put twice the energy into the other car. And obviously this car doesn't put twice the energy into that car. They just crushed their amount, and that's it. So it's the same as if they hit the brick wall. And all you have is a total amount of cars crushed. You have 2 cars, so you have twice the crushing. So it's exactly the same as if I just crashed 2 cars into the brick wall at 50 miles an hour, I would get the same outcome. So there's just really no evidence. And let's just say we could make it elastic and use springs. where have no expectation that I'm going to get any extra. Like the car on one side is going to get twice the momentum. So their theory is that twice the momentum goes in the reflecting object. The object creating the reflection, the wall, or in this case the car, is supposed to get twice the energy. And there's no evidence that happens. So again, it's just more evidence that their theory is nonsense. It doesn't happen. It's not reflected in the outcomes that happen that there's good evidence for. So good evidence demonstrates the truth, and the truth is not their theory is proven correct. The truth is it's proven incorrect. So I'll show a little bit of the Mythbusters video. Unfortunately, I don't have the original copy, but you can just basically see the basic setup and experiment. So they'll show us these amateur experiments done with these rickety devices that they claim prove something. You know, how much you dent a piece of floral foam is somehow good proof. Here they're denting clay and denting cars, and I'd say it's a much better proof. Much better. All right, so this is the demo of the what's actually taking place. So it's a 1V crash and then a 2V crash. It's going to duplicate. And here's the setup actually doing the experiment, and the results were consistent in terms of the outcomes were always pretty much exactly the same. So this is the 1.5, and then you'll get the 0.75 for the second collision at twice the speed. So at twice the speed, it won't be any different. So they just show they repeat it 10 times, and same results. And then now it's twice the velocity, 4 times the height, it's twice the velocity. By the kinetic energy theorem, I'm supposed to get 4 times the crushing, and bang, twice the crushing. And they even say it makes sense. So if you could hear the dialogue when they look at it, and they go, wow, look, and they measure it twice, and they go, well, that makes sense. 777. So he's saying it makes sense. And they're agreeing it makes sense. And then later they edit the video and shove in a part where they say, oh, okay, yeah, it's nothing crushes consistently, or some kind of mush like that. So it all came out the same way. All the experiments, it's really just twice, half, no 1/4, and certainly no evidence of 4 times the crushing. So it didn't happen. It doesn't happen. Their story, okay, isn't the real story, and the facts are pretty glaring. So there's been nobody's debunked in any serious way anything about that video demonstrating how they can explain why the cars are exactly consistent with momentum and perfectly not consistent with 4 times the crushing. You know, magically the cars just happen to be the right speed for the materials of the car to prevent any further crushing. Somehow the cars can't be crushed. There's not enough, not enough energy in the universe to crush the car some more or something. There's some reason it came out just perfect for momentum when it's not supposed to be. When it's supposed to be crushed 4 times as much, it's only crushed twice as much. And they think it's just a coincidence that we found a defect that comes out this way. And the same thing with the clay. Somehow the clay is cheating your perception. It's lying to us. But floral foam doesn't lie. Clay lies, but floral foam doesn't. And, I've been over floral foam is made out of cells. And so it's a karate argument where you're really just breaking the cells, the walls of the cell. So it's a bunch of little membranes that you're breaking. And obviously, with those kind of circumstances, that's all or nothing. You can apply a pressure to a piece of glass and the glass won't break until it gets to a sufficient pressure, then it cracks and breaks. All surfaces provide that kind of number where it's a pretty consistent. I could do it over and over again and it'll break at a certain number. And then it gets really easy to pass through the substance. If I can break it quicker, I can use less energy. And so that's why karate works, is because you're just applying the energy quicker in a shorter amount of time. And the surface can't deal with the quickness that you have applied the energy. But there wasn't more energy. It was just applied better to break surfaces. Obviously, clay doesn't have that problem, and it actually has to be moved. You actually have to give the clay molecules momentum. You actually have to exchange your momentum with them. So I would say it's a much fairer comparison, experimental medium. All right, so we'll call that enough of a video. But yeah, so they have no response to this. They're not going to explain how this is a garbage experiment. So go ahead, prove how the Mythbusters didn't know what they were talking about, didn't know how to do the experiment right, blah, 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 blah. When, of course, you're not going to be able to make those arguments because it was close enough, and it was so far from anywhere close to the outcome kinetic energy predicts. It was a complete fail. It didn't like get a C or a D on the test. It was a complete failure for kinetic energy to show any glimmer of its existence. A complete failure.